Toto the Ninja Cat and the Great Snake Escape. Dermot O'Leary, congratulations on having your first children's book
Thank
published.
you.
How does it feel now it's out in the world?
So nice. Strange. But you finally realise what it's like to be a rock star, because, you know, I've interviewed so many people on the radio and they come in about albums and I finally, like, the penny drops when you finish it and you put it out there, you can't bring it back and change it anymore. But I'm really happy. I'm really proud of it.
Why cats?
I've got 2 cats. So one actually sadly passed away about 2 months ago.
I know your Instagram post was very heartfelt.
But and I'm not really an oversharer, but I just, every now and again you want to put something out there to pay homage. And poor little Silver passed away a couple of months ago. But we have 2 cats, 4 years old, and Silver's sister Toto. We rescued them from Italy. It's a long story. But we realised...
Did your wife deliver them?
That's a long story, yeah.
Well, so, in short, how the heck
we have a little
happen?
place down in Italy which we rent out for a lot of the year, and we go down for a couple of weeks a year in Puglia. And there's a lot of wild cats around, and they're not really that wild. They're sort of stray but not feral. And this lovely cat called Plaxi, who we named after a friend of ours, started hanging out. And every time we went over there, we'd see her and we'd feed her. And you couldn't pick her up, but you could pet her. And then she ended up sleeping on the end of our bed, and she was lovely. And then about 5 years ago, I had to come back a day early for work, and Dee, my wife, called me and just said, look, she's giving birth to her kittens in our pillowcase, and there's not much we can do about it. And I'm going to stay up all night. So she stayed up all night, did an incredible piece of cat midwifery, delivered 4 kittens with her. She said it was just an incredible experience. And then and the neighbour took 2, and then we said, right, let's get them quarantined, and then we sort of brought them back. So we sort of rescued these 2 cats from Italy. They both came back. We realised quite quickly that Toto had trouble seeing. I was like, no, she's fine. My wife went, she is actually blind. And she was confirmed as pretty much 100% blind. Like, she sees breaks in light and stuff, but she has the most incredible reactions. So I just extrapolated it, and so you'd see her like suddenly look at a bird flying across the sky if the sky was bright, and she'd see the break in light. Or if you were playing with her, she'd be able to go for the toy. She'd hear the noise, and so. Like I said, I extrapolated it and decided it'd be a great idea for a book to turn her into like a cat that during the day she's a regular cat, but at night she's this ninja. With ninja-like, and she's part of an elite group of cat warriors, kind of like Kill Bill in a good way for kids. And she goes and solves crimes. But the first book really isn't about crime. It's about we live near the zoo in London, and so I use the zoo as kind of a starting point. And the idea is that the king cobra, which is one of the most venomous snakes the zoo has, even though he's called Brian. So I don't want to make him too scary, escapes the zoo, and they have to catch him. But even Brian isn't, like, the whole thing with this book, everything isn't what it seems. So they've got a friend called Catface who isn't what he seems. Brian isn't what he seems. So it's about, the subtext is not judging a book by its cover, and inclusivity. Cats
are absolutely incredible. I know I'm probably pushing at an open door here with our listeners who are huge cat lovers, I'm sure. But that reflexes thing. We once had a semi-feral cat at home in Ireland who I once saw from a standing position jump into the air and take a bat out of the sky. I mean, they are extraordinary, yeah. But they get you to do stuff for them as well, which is just incredible. When we first got our cats, and we put a cat flap in, and they wouldn't use it, and we took him to the vets for a checkup, and he said, anything else? And I went, yeah. He's really stupid, our cat. This is when Silver was around. He said, because he doesn't use the cat flap, and the vet stopped me, and he went, let me stop you. He said, do you think he's stupid? I said, yeah, because he doesn't. He went, no. Why doesn't he use a cat flap? And I said, because he stands by it and I open it for him. And oh, yeah, I get it. He said, they know exactly what they're doing. He said, they won't expend any more energy than they have to. If he knows you're going to open that cat flap for him, then he'll just stand by it until you open it for him. And turning on taps for them. Right. If you leave it shut, then he'll use it himself. Sure enough, left it shut. He went out. And yeah, he used to not drink out of a bowl. So he'd just jump up on the sink, stand next to the tap and go, let's go. Running water, I want it now. And of course you go, oh, I shouldn't be. All right, then you're so cute. Go on, I'll turn it on. But they do. I think the fallacy about cats is they don't give affection and love back, and they absolutely do. They just do it on their terms. And also, the whole kind of thing with the cat is that if it looks away from you, if it sits next to you but looks away from you, that's a sign of support and conditional love, because it's going, I feel safe around your company, because they hate eye contact. So if they stare away from you, it actually means they trust you. Yeah, they're happy in your company. You have a cat's eye view of London in this book, which must have been great fun to ride. For example, they take the tube on the roof. I wanted them to...
when I was writing it, I wanted to. When I was a kid, we'd spend a lot of our weekends up in London, because I grew up just outside London, Colchester. My parents moved out, big Irish family. So we'd go back and see the Irish family. My dad would play Gaelic sports, or we would go and watch matinees around my Auntie Angela's house. And it would always be, I fell in love with London through Victoriana of London. So I fell in love with London through Oliver, through My Fair Lady, through Mary Poppins. And I wanted to capture a little bit of that in this, in that I loved the idea of these cats being shown around London by this guy they meet who becomes their very good friend, Catface, who's a kind of an aristocrat. And I wanted him to show them around. And he knows everyone in London. He's the most popular animal in the whole of London. So I wanted him to show them around and meet Larry at 10 Downing Street.
Larry
and
the
I thought,
cat.
how did I get there? Well, I thought, when we're on the tube, and London is a far friendlier city than people give it credit for, but it is a city that minds its own business, and it's a city that's always in a hurry, very inconvenient city. And I wanted to capture that kind of, like, when you're on the tube, you look down, or you read a paper, or you look at your phone, or blah, blah. And actually, I thought, if we look up, wouldn't it be amazing if there were just, there's like a whole kind of cat or animal transport system. So when they get on the tube, dogs aren't allowed to attack cats. Pigeons can be on there if they're lazy. Parakeets can be on there. Hedgehogs can be on there. But everyone exists on the tube. So, but they ride on the top of the tubes. That's where the animal tube is. So that's sort of where I got the kind of the idea to take them around London.
The illustrations are wonderful as well.
Nick East he's incredible. He really is. Because I met him. They sort of gave me, Hodder, who I published it with, gave me a couple of people to meet, and actually Nick was the only one I met. He sent me his stuff and I really liked it, and then he came down to London, met the cats, took some sketches of the street, which made him look like a bit of a weirdo. I went back and because I can't draw for toffee, and he got it completely. He absolutely captured everything I wanted to.
Because it's half the battle, isn't it? Because I know you love Roald Dahl. I mean, when you think of Roald Dahl, as our child did, it was Quentin Blake, wasn't it? And it just is forever. The pictures in your mind are there.
Absolutely. And he's done such a good job with that, because Toto's she's a little bit overweight, and she's
a bit portly.
Yeah, exactly. And she's got this Elizabethan ruff, and she's kind of got fur everywhere. And I think the first sketches came back before he'd seen the cats. She was kind of svelte, and I just went, no, I want her to be who she is. I want her to be, she's a little bit poorly, like you say, and she likes her food. And Silver's got this massive long, he's far more lithe, he's got this massive long bushy tail. I wanted to kind of capture those idiosyncrasies, because that's what our animals, irrespective of whether they're cats or dogs, they all have them, don't they? And I wanted that to come across on paper and in print.
It's interesting because in some ways, and I don't want to get all sued on it, but it is a story for our times, because they are immigrants, the pair of them. Yep. They are struggling to come to terms in a new country. And, Toto is blind, and they both have their little disabilities along the way. And then you have Catface, who is having a bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all in there.
It wasn't conscious, really. It was just, I sort of found it, when I finished it, I read it back and thought, wow, this is actually a story about inclusivity, and about not judging a book by its cover, and also about how welcoming people are. Like, they've come to this country and they're welcomed by people. And I think, look, I'm not using this as a comparison to anything else, but I do think we are a very welcoming people here. We are a country of immigrants, and we should be very proud of that. So
the writing process for you, is it, this will probably be the first and last time in your life you're compared to Jeffrey Archer, but he has a room.
Thank heaven for small mercies.
He has a room, because we interviewed him. He has a room in his house in Mallorca, and it's just got a big window onto the sea, and he just looks out and he just hammers it out, and he's, really, really disciplined.
I'd never get anything done if
what's
I had a
your
room
process?
in Mallorca. I'd be like, Paul looks nice. I'll get some done later. I'll just go and sit by that. I had very romantic notions when I sat down to put pen to paper. I also used to, when I was a 5-year-old, a bit later, when I was sort of 7 or 8, I used to write detective fiction and sell it door to door.
Did you?
Yeah, it was quite weird around our estate. I mean, it was just 2 pages worth of nonsense. And then, so I've always loved it. And then I think if you work in, for want of a better word, the creative industries, whether it's broadcasting or theatre or whatever, I always wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. And then, so I think you've always got, there's a little itch, that you need to scratch. And so when I started doing it, you find out a lot about when you're best, like creatively, I think. And I sort of skim read that Stephen King book. I haven't read it properly yet. A friend of mine got it for me on writing. And he says he just crams it in and then walks away from it. And actually, I even though most of the TV I do is live and in the evening, I do my radio show on Saturday mornings, Radio 2 in the morning, and I find it I like mornings. As soon as it takes me a while to get up, but when I am up, I really enjoy. I think it's not for me to say whether I'm good or creative, but I feel quite creative in the morning. So most of this was done. I realised in terms of the diary with radio and X Factor and other TV stuff, I could do. I couldn't do it like for a whole 5 weeks, but I knew I could have 2 or 3 days where I got up first thing, worked through to lunch, got a few thousand words done each week that I was happy with, and then I got it done over about 4 or 5 weeks.
So you are quite disciplined then, actually.
Yeah.
What was having a break from X Factor for a year like? Was it edgy or was it
edgy to
comfortable?
Start with, but then the strange thing is, this came from it. A documentary I made for Channel 4 that sort of presented and produced about the Battle of Britain, Battle of Britain Day, and the Battle of Britain came from it. A couple of other things came from it. So, yes, I missed it, and I missed doing live telly incredibly, and I missed working with the same team because, a lot's made about X Factor and how ruthless it is, but actually, it really isn't. I mean, the team I was working with last week, my producer used to be my runner. We're a very, very inclusive family. And it's it feels like a family to work on the show, and so I miss those guys, and I miss doing live television, and I miss doing a show that people talk about whether they like it or not. It's part of a conversation, and there's something you feel very privileged to do a show like that. The flip side is I was able to have the time to actually just be and go, okay, what do I want to do? I want to make a documentary about the Battle of Britain, 75th anniversary of Battle of Britain Day coming up. I've got time to properly work on that and pitch it and find a production company I want to make it with. What do I write? I really want to write a book. What do I want to write a book about? I had about 2 or 3 ideas. This was one of them. I was able to flesh it out and go and pitch it. So, you've got to take advantage of your opportunity as and when it comes up. So you can't, the one thing, I'm not a sit still kind of a guy.
Well, was there a period of self-reflection during that time, or did you not have time? Did you just feel it?
A little bit, but you can't. Probably only days. You can't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. You've got to get back on, no matter what area you're working. I don't think I'm a special case or anything. I just think you've got to. It's the old Shawshank Redemption, isn't it? Get busy living, get busy dying.
And Simon has since said to you that he made a mistake.
In a Simon way.
Well, how did that conversation go?
I made a mistake, but it was a good mistake, wasn't it? Because everything works out all right, and they still walk away scratching your head going, yeah, I guess he's a very charming, very funny, erudite, and intelligent man. And you can't help when you spend time with him, but you can't help but get taken in by him. He's very... he's a lovely man to be around. Like, he's a lot of fun. There's this kind of myth about him there. I've never seen him shout. I've never seen him lose his temper. He's very smart. He's very calm, and very considered. So when he makes those calls, he makes them for what he considers to be the best reasons, even if you don't agree with them. And he's not a guy who like yes men around him. You've got to respect his opinion, but he always wants to hear other people's take and other people's opinions.
It's quite changed this year in that this is the first time that the judging panel has remained the same for 2 years in a row.
For it.
Why? It just gives people a chance.
I think there's a stability to it. I think everyone kind of knows, they all know each other really well. I think, and it's been like this for a couple of years, but I think it certainly now feels very comfortable in its own skin. We do inhibit a very different ground to Strictly. I think we are different shows. So I think when the rating battle first started, which I will admit we are not winning, but
not this time.
No, when the rating battle first started, I think we were worried about it. And actually, after a while, you go, you know what, we know what we do. We hope people like what we do. Young people who, for the most part, watch our show watch it in a very different way.
Yes, they do, and that's where it's absolutely killing it, because it's got that young demographic that Strictly just doesn't have.
And even those young people might not watch the show live, but when they watch the auditions back. I mean, and so actually, I think we've sort of got to a very comfortable place where we are. Like I said, the team's very much like a family, and we just enjoy doing the show. Because I always think, ever since I started working in television, you can't worry too much about, what will the viewer think about this? If you're having a good time, you try and hope that people are back home. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But you can't worry too much about about trying to please everyone, because that way lies indecision, and that you know, can't be apologetic about it. You've just got to do what you hope people at home like.
Are you having a good time? Because you are, when I watch you, one of the most unflappable looking people that I have ever seen on television. And I'm wondering always, is he sick to his stomach or is he having a ball?
Thank you. I love it. I really do. And I love it because I've prepped, and when you prep, it means when stuff goes wrong, you embrace stuff going wrong. Because Andy Peters was my first live producer, and you know, Andy had all this broom-covered experience back in the day, CBBC, and he was such a good producer because he went, listen, just think about where you're going. Every single link you do, if you've got where you're going in the back of your mind, then don't worry what happens in front of you. Don't panic when something crazy happens in front of you, because you know where you're going and you're in charge, you're in control. So just take it. And it was the best piece of advice, best piece of producing I've probably ever been given. Which is why now, and I'm so glad that the Beeb are doing this Saturday morning show, because you've got to get these nursery slopes back. Otherwise, we'll end up with a bunch of reality stars on telly. And some of them are gifted, some of them can do it. But you've got to let people, you can't just chuck people out there and expect them to be broadcasters. You've got to train these people up in the same way you would do for any job. And I think it's really important that the channels and broadcasters invest in those nursery slope shows, because that is where the next generation of talent will come from.
I don't know if you've seen, in the last 24 hours, Cat Deeley was quoted in a newspaper as saying that it might be time to let, as with all big shows like X Factor, let it have a year off. People will miss it, and then when they bring it back, everybody will love it again. Do you see that as being an idea? Would that improve things? Or
I don't think so. I think, you know, you break the band up, you never know it's going to get back together. So
yeah, the history of that is not great.
I think, look, if you look over, X Factor's on for 16 weeks of the year, and
13 this time, yeah.
And so if you try and find a show that rates as well as it rates over that period of time, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to launch a show. You see it all the time. Some good shows just get buried in the schedule or aren't marketed properly. Like, a lot of stars have to align for a show to work, and the fact that, like you say, over with the overnights and with the considereds, and by the end of the week we're still rating really well. And like we try not to worry too much about it. Just get your head down and try and make a good show. And I think that way lies making good TV. If you worry too much about what people are thinking or ratings, then I think then you lapse into making a show out of fear, and that's never a good thing.
Talking about people that have given you good advice along the way and have been friends and heroes. So Terry Wogan today named as the greatest.
Isn't that lovely?
Isn't it lovely? Especially because he's Irish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Terry was so nice. He's so good to all these young broadcasters been at Radio 2. I mean, he was the loveliest Terry story, Jeremy Vine's story actually, where when the Queen came to celebrate one of the Radio 2's birthdays, and they were all in a lineup, and you know, bless the Queen, she doesn't know who everyone is, but she knows who Terry is, and she met Terry, and she said, having a little chat with him, and she said, "And how long have you worked here?" And he said, "Your Majesty, I've never worked here." Isn't that marvellous? What a great story.
So finally, Toto and Silver, are they coming back? How many more can we expect to see?
I've got 2. So I've signed for 2. So do you know what, Sarah? I just really enjoy doing it.
You can feel that when you're reading it.
There's
Sounds
no
like you're having a real laugh.
kind of branding plan to any of this. I just really enjoy writing, and I really enjoy writing fiction at that level. And I've got a couple of other ideas as well, but I would love to carry on. So I'm definitely doing another one, which I'm sort of forming up at the moment. And then I've got about 3 or 4 other ideas for the books as well. So fingers crossed.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really
Lovely to
appreciate it.
talk to you.